Joining me via Skype to talk more in depth about the late, great Bobby Mitchell is Darren Haynes, the sports director of WUSA 9 in Washington, D.C. Darren, thanks for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. I was thinking about this after learning of Bobby Mitchell's death. Is there really any way to measure what he meant to the D.C. area, the DMV?
To measure it, Anthony, it's tough to measure it, but just kind of put in perspective just the fact that what was going on during that time when you look at the 60s and the civil rights movement and you look at other professional teams that allowed a African American to play for their team, and Bobby Mitchell was the first African American to play for the Washington Redskins in the 60s during the civil rights movement. In a city that, let's just say they call it Chocolate City, where maybe the minority is the majority, to see a guy like that, Bobby Mitchell, to break a barrier like that speaks volumes as far as in what the legacy that he left behind, or should I say the barrier that he broke here in Washington, D.C.
Now, Darren, as you know, there are those who believe the Redskins should change their team name. That is not what this is about. That's a discussion for another day. But we do know for a fact the original owner, George Preston Marshall, did not want black players on his team. Now, for a number of reasons, in 1962, Mitchell traded to D.C. and, as you said, became the first black player for the Redskins. Can you even imagine what he went through having that type of weight on his shoulders during that time?
Well, it's funny when you listen to interviews from Bobby Mitchell, he was mentioning that he was picked on a certain way. He was also mentioning like he couldn't even imagine how some of the other African American players who were playing in the NFL were going through. And then I had the chance to interview Doug Williams, who was the first African American starting quarterback to win a Super Bowl. And Doug Williams was talking about some of the stories that he had with Bobby Mitchell and the fact that it wasn't just the white people who were going against Bobby Mitchell, but also just the black people, just because of the level of class that he was in. So he had to face arrows coming at him from both particular ways. But when you look at the former owner of the Washington Redskins, in the NFL, they started drafting players and allowing those black players to play on teams in the 40s. You know, the Redskins didn't allow it to happen until 1962. Becoming the last team to do so.
And you will hear part 2 of my interview with Darren Haynes in the next hour, where he discusses the impact Mitchell made on current Redskins executive Doug Williams, a pioneer in his own right within the offices at the team facility, as well as the charitable efforts of the late, great Bobby Mitchell. Laverne, really hard to measure the true impact that that man had on the community in the Washington, D.C. area.